Buckle up, ladies and gents. Today, we're having a look at probably the saltiest game of top tier jets that I've seen in a little while. Top tier jets is normally the place where pilots are their most competitive. People are looking to rack up as many kills as possible in the best planes in the game. And I think top tier jets tends to be one of the more interesting places for combat in the whole game. People tend to know a bit more of what they're doing, and they tend to be a bit more experienced. But at the same time, people are stepping into this new area where their planes don't perform quite as well as what they thought, or rather that their planes are a little bit different. I find personally that top tier jets tends to be, for me, one of the places where I go to be competitive, where I go to rack up as many kills as possible, and I tend to be playing not always the flavor of the month, sometimes the underdog, but I tend to pick the winning side. So if, for example, on screen you can see the Hawker Hunter, at that time the Allies were winning, and so me feeling like playing a bit of jet combat, decide to load up the Hawker Hunter and go for a game. In this match, however, everyone is a little bit on edge, it seems. Especially with the CL-13. Now, the CL-13, whilst on paper potentially not being an amazing jet, the way it plays out in the game, ends up being basically the best jet in the game without any serious competition. The way it tends to play out, CL-13 pilots especially tend to be either the only 9.0s in the whole game, or they tend to be paired with C2Bs, MiG-15 Bisses, and you don't tend to see many other 8.0s that shouldn't really be 8.0s. Whereas with the Allies, you tend to get LA-15s, MiGs, F2 Sabres, A5 Sabres, and other jets that aren't the true OG, proper 9.0s. And as a result, the CL being quite versatile, being able to, say, catch the Hunter, keep up with the MiG-17, pull with most of the other jets in the game, it tends to dominate. And that tends to frustrate people quite a lot, especially if they're trying to get good games in their allied jets. And a lot of CL pilots, whilst they technically are correct that the CL may not be hands down best performing jet in the game, certainly I don't want to say don't see that their jet is the flavor of the month, but I guess it may not be entirely obvious. Right now in my Hawker Hunter, I can see my team is just sort of starting to crumble. Everyone's a bit slow, a bit low on energy, and those CLs are just pulling energy out of their ass. And there's nothing else we can do. Look at them all. They're all on the deck. They're all fast. Where's my team? Spread out. Not quite functioning. Everyone's sort of slowly dying. And that's one of the reasons why allied jet teams seem to crumble. No one seems to be functioning properly. And part of it is down to the pilots, part of it is down to the planes. And there's just nothing you can do unless Gaijin were to implement some sort of better matchmaker, meaning an increase in BR spreads up to 10.0 with the Hawker Hunter, the CL, MiG-17 and the F2 being 10.0. People have been through this before. You get the idea. But naturally in the chat, there's a fair bit of salt going on. You can see a conversation will eventually spring up between myself, another fellow pilot who happens to be a subscriber. So if you're watching, know that you you made it to YouTube. And yeah, there's just generally plenty of salt going around. And everyone seems to get into this lovely argument. As you can see, in the Hawker Hunter, I'm getting a little bit impatient, as well as getting a little bit frustrated with these pilots. Because whilst the CL on paper may not be the best performing jet in the game, in practice it certainly is. And then you take into consideration the matchmaking, and you've got one hell of a jet. Especially with 50 cals and how easy it is to aim them. The roll rate, the rudder, the high and low speed maneuverability, flap speeds, air brake capabilities, general energy retention, speed, acceleration at high and low speeds, maneuverability at high and low speeds. It is a genuinely frustrating jet to fight against, especially when you compound that with a terrible team. Like I've got, you saw me flash up the scoreboard, everyone's dead. And you can look around me, everyone's dead. Naturally, I decide to get fed up. Typing there in the chat. I can't quite read it. Pretty sure it's salty though. Anyway. You can just see... You can see the frustration in me. I'm just heading straight towards them. Not really giving a fuck. Everything is just that little bit turned up. It's a real shame though. You'd hope at the top tier that Gaijin would probably balance these teams a little bit better. Maybe give the allies a fighting chance by putting a less capable Axis jet on the team. Alternatively, the best option would be to address the spread of the battle ratings. Personally, pop them up to 10-0, and you've got a really solid matchmaker. Sure, the queue times would be shit for a bit, and then people would come back. But yeah, for now we get to deal with me and a Vautour carrying the enemy team. One thing that the Hunter itself is really good for is high-speed maneuvers and high-speed attacks. Personally, what I'm about to do, I don't recommend doing it. This is a bit of a scummy move. Generally, among jet pilots, there's an unwritten code that you don't strafe people on the runway. But when you're as salty as me, and salty as this enemy team, and my squad mate there, yeah, sometimes you just give zero fucks. Strafe 3 people like nothing. And the AA doesn't give a shit either, which I find a bit frustrating because you would expect it to be at least consistent, and the AA is not consistent. It'd be nice to have some sort of hard appreciation that if you were landing, the AA would either 100% protect you until whatever was around the area died, or not protect you at all and not half-half. Personally, I find that a little bit frustrating. I'd like to know if I'm going to land, whether or not I will be safe or not have to guess. Another thing you may not do, or you shouldn't do in a Hunter, is commit to head-ons. You can certainly make head-on passes, but I don't recommend doing it very close and at low speed. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you wanted a quick way to get 7 kills, don't be as scummy as me, please. It's pretty dirty. I probably wouldn't do it again, but when you're frustrated, when you're salty, you'll pretty much do and say anything. That's why I get chat bans. But yeah, that's a really interesting way to spend 600 rounds. Team's dead. Match is going to be a loss. What have I gotten out of it? Bit of self-gratification, I guess, at the expense of others. Unfortunately, top tier Jets sometimes plays out that way. And for it to be a less frustrating experience, I think a good way would be to even out the teams so that the win rates are roughly 50-50. I think the CL has a win rate of something like 75%, which is absolutely ridiculous. You would expect that the highest battle ratings would be the most balanced. And in tanks, that's starting to become a thing. We've already got Leopard 2A4, Type 90, Abrams, T80 soon, and hopefully the British get some love, maybe. We've got IFVs coming, we've got helicopters, and top tier Jets are seeing nothing like this. A simple battle rating rebalance would be all that they need. And that would be the top tier for planes, sorted. Just fine and dandy, all rosy. I personally don't understand why people haven't been pushing enough for this. I guess the old AirRB is dead comes to mind, but honestly, personally, AirRB is quite enjoyable. And there's nothing quite like AirRB in any other game. And I don't see why Gaijin shouldn't market themselves on that. Even if it doesn't bring in as much money, it's still something unique that can be a bit of a draw to the game, especially jets. Where else can you fly the MiG, the Hunter, the Sabre, the fucking Mystère in combat all together? Like these are planes that would have all fought side by side, roughly speaking. Not quite all of them, and not always all together, but this is a bit of a unique thing in jets. And I don't understand why Gaijin isn't really perpetuating it. It could be a real draw to people, especially the plane nerds. Like, for me, one of the things that drew me to grind for top tier was having a look at the Panthers back in the day. I saw the Panthers and thought, wow, I'd like to get myself a Panther. Look at the cannons it's got. It looks beautiful. Honestly, I don't see why they don't market it as well. And I would love to see Gaijin market it in the future. Maybe there's something that can be done. If you've got any ideas, put it in the comments. But yeah, ladies and gents, Salty Boy crashes because he's salty. Don't be like me, please. If you're going to play with a level head. Go outside if you're salty. Grab a drink, go for a run. Just don't be like me, please. Anyway, ladies and gents, take care, and I'll catch you next time.